With all of the organization-ending and career-ending consequences of sexual misconduct of all types, you'd think that implementing and enforcing training and policies against sexual misconduct would be top of mind for basically every organization. But weirdly, it's not. Many organizations, secular and religious, simply do not properly train on this topic. Specifically, for a Memphis-based company that distributed promotional products and other office supplies, not only were such policies not a priority, but they didn't even exist. If you're guessing that this created some major issues for that company, you'd be guessing correctly. Now, they didn't have training, they didn't have policies. Instead, they seem to have been relying on their company culture to keep people safe. Common sense. You wouldn't force your saleswoman to participate in a mandatory kissing club in order to receive sales leads. That would be insane. Unfortunately, that's what they did. But again, people are basically good. Or at least that's what lacking training policies implies, that you think people will basically know right from wrong and choose to do the right thing over the wrong thing. And the proof is in the pudding, because when their fellow coworkers saw the saleswoman being treated in this way, they did what any reasonable person would do and turned a blind eye to it. For 2 years, until there was a lawsuit. Now, the court records don't spell out who did or didn't know about the kissing club. Often this sort of behavior is an open secret in the organization. Without training, people don't know how to identify red flags and often don't know what inappropriate behavior looks like. So they might generally know something's not quite right, but they never realize to look deeper to confront the misconduct. Of course, this company's problems went way beyond our people aren't trained and offenders are taking advantage. During the trial, it came out that over the 2 years the misconduct took place, the company had no sexual harassment policy at all. They had no training and they had no reporting procedures. And this begs the question as to why. Well, for the same reason many churches don't have these training procedures. They didn't think they would need them. They didn't think the risk of misconduct was that big a deal, and apparently they trusted their congregants, employees, to act like decent human beings. This brings us to the titular Judas syndrome. Talk to your average person on the street, and they'll disavow misconduct. No one thinks that anyone should be sexually mistreated. Talk to your average Christian, and the standard is even higher. Christians are called to abide by strict sexual morals that aim to protect women and children and don't align well with harassing your coworkers. But in any community, including what I'm now calling Camp Kissing Club, and including the church, there are people who give lip service to morality without having any intention of acting in an appropriate way. Like Judas at the Last Supper, they look like one of us, but their actions put other people in danger. It's the job of leaders to ensure that they, and the people they are responsible for guarding, understand misconduct and the warning signs that can help identify the Judases in the community. And it's critical that leaders equip and empower their people to confront misconduct, whether it's sexual harassment of adults or whether it's abuse of children. Of course, in our Camp Kissing Club example, HR did the opposite of this. She testified that she didn't know what sexual harassment was at the time of the Kissing Club event, and because she didn't know, the victim's complaints fell on deaf ears. While this is really bad, you can see how this scales up when the misconduct might involve more severe things. Training and tracking not only communicate to employees what misconduct is and how to prevent that misconduct, it shows the organization cares, and it's part of being a good steward. We live in a fallen world full of broken people, and each broken person that the church is called to serve, they're a potential victim. And if we're going to serve the least of these, we need to protect them as well. Also, very significantly, training communicates to would-be offenders that the organization is not a safe place to establish kissing clubs or any other kind of misconduct. If offenders know the entire organization is on the watch and willing to confront them, many of them will simply leave rather than risk getting caught. Finally, beyond just protecting people, training and tracking, and with child safety accreditation, helps protect the organization from liability. In our Kissing Club example, the organization had taken no actions to prevent misconduct, and they weren't able to argue their sexual harassment policy had been effective because they didn't have one. They couldn't even argue they made a good faith effort to prevent misconduct because they didn't even know what the misconduct was and allowed it to continue for over 2 years. No. Instead, Camp Kissing Club pled ignorance, and that left them liable for $1.5 million in compensatory and punitive damages. But like I said, the good news is that this kind of thing can be prevented, and I promised I'd tell you how. I chose this example because you can take the Camp Kissing Club as a step-by-step on what not to do. Literally, just do the opposite of what they did. Also, get plugged into a training provider. Chelios Teaches, for example, is an online training provider, and we provide training on both sexual harassment prevention and child protection in the ministry environment. Online training of all types is easy to implement. Learners just log in and watch the videos. You can make it part of their onboarding process, and online training is automatically tracked so you can know what has been communicated and what hasn't been communicated. Online training also can encourage bystander intervention, ours specifically does, and reporting. Once people are trained, all leadership has to do is be faithful and document and follow up on misconduct allegations if and when they arise. And for organizations with child safety needs, this is really important. The third pillar is accreditation, and that can be done through the Evangelical Council for Abuse Prevention. Delaying and letting the years tick by without getting trained and accredited increases the window where this misconduct can occur. The proper time for training and accreditation is before you need it, which, if you haven't done so yet, means now. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time to discuss details about implementation.